So, I'm not the greatest in the kitchen. To no one's fault but my own, I just never made it a priority to set time aside to get confident in the art. Ever since I started out on this little journey to become a better human being, I've been slowly weaning off heavy meat consumption. A couple of years ago was a total different story. Ever since trying to become a little more body aware, and I started doing my own little eating experiments, where I realized that I just felt worse after eating meat, more sluggish, less motivated to get moving. To my amazement, around the same time this was all happening to me, one of my good friends just happened to be getting into cooking more with vegetarian and vegan recipes due to the same reasons as me. He always had been quite savvy in the kitchen, but just recently started to get more specifically into meatless dishes. So it was fantastic to be talking with someone else who just happened to be testing the waters on the same topic. I've been commenting on wanting to try some of his dishes for quite some time now, and at the moment, we're supposed to be leaving the house as little as possible due to the current circumstances in the world. So he had the fun idea to be prepping some of his dishes and just leave them on my doorstep for me to try while we talk over like a video chat about them. I thought it was a wicked creative, awesome idea and wanted to give it a try.
So, Wes, thank you so much for being here. This is such a wicked idea. I'm so excited to be trying this.
I'm glad.
I haven't really introduced you yet. Go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of a bit about yourself.
Yeah.
What made you get into all this?
Well, to introduce myself, my name is Wesley Wright. Jason and I have been friends for a very, very, very long time. And I'm a recent university graduate, and I just have a passion for cooking, and I love being able to make really tasty recipes at home. And up until the pandemic, I was a meat eater. I really liked meat, and uh, I really loved cooking meat. And during the pandemic, it obviously caused all of us to start thinking about our health and thinking about what we're putting into our bodies. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I decided to go plant-based. And my girlfriend has been plant-based for 5 years or something like that. So I thought I would give it a try, and I thought that it would be just lettuce and, just salads and nuts and that sort of thing. And so the reason why I want to do this is to show people that being plant-based and eating a plant-based diet doesn't have to be just lettuce. It can be super tasty, and even it could even possibly be more tasty than eating a diet with meat in it. So
You know what? I don't know if tasty is the right word, because I think what both you and I resonated with is because I started eating less and less meat starting, I want to say it was late 2019, I believe. But I just, like, from doing my own little experiments, I just felt better not eating meat. I felt sluggish, more like just not as go-getter. You didn't want to move as much after and stuff. And I remember saying that to you, and you kind of agreeing with me. So again, tasty almost isn't the right word, but if you can get it tasting even remotely similar with like through cooking like this, then it's still pleasing your taste buds, but you still feel so much better afterwards, sort of thing.
exactly. And being able to have something that is and when I say tastier, I mean tastier than just a salad, right? Like,
very true. Just the lettuce.
exactly.
Okay, so how do you want to be starting with any other, like, so I know you had something kind of planned you wanted to say. Do you want to do that before we kind of dive in, or?
Yeah. So what I have in front of you are three different vegan, well, not quite vegan, vegetarian or plant-based
Gotcha.
recipes, and I've given you one that is a easy everyday meal that you can make in 10 to 15 minutes.
Right.
I have a kind of cheat day, like you're feeling a little naughty and you want to have something a bit tastier.
Right.
And then I have something that you can whip together for a meal prep and have ready to just have on the go. So to start with, I would start with the tofu sandwich. That's the everyday
Gotcha.
kind of easy to make. You're at home, you want something tasty, you don't want a salad. So that's where I'd start.
Okay, so what it looks absolutely, I see like some caramelized onion and everything. What are we dealing with here?
So what you've got there, I've used medium firm tofu, and I've seasoned it with Montreal steak spice, which surprisingly is vegan. And then what you've got is some white cap mushrooms that, as well as an onion that I have just sautéed. Everything was cooked in vegetable oil, so there's nothing to like butter or anything in there. And then in terms of seasoning, just basics: salt, pepper, and then I've got some toppings for you there, which is homemade ketchup and some Dijon mustard, as well as some
Homemade
lettuce.
ketchup.
Yep. Well, you find that a lot of ketchup is very, very sweet, and
Hmm.
it's loaded with sugar. And so mine is just a tomato puree, a little bit of water, and some blitzed tomatoes, along with a tiny bit of brown sugar just to give it a little kick. So,
First impression is like the onions stand out, and
yeah,
I love like the caramelized like sautéed onions.
it's a
The
great way
flavor
to
of those
have
is
them.
definitely
So,
there.
yeah,
I want to obviously that little travel period of you taking your time to get here. The bread's a little firm,
yep,
probably because it's toasted and stuff, but it's almost
yeah,
giving off a little bit of a dry approach. But what I
yeah.
mean is, if you were at your, but you can add more of your homemade ketchup and stuff. So like if that was an issue for some people and stuff. But I mean,
Yeah, and as well, that bread is from Harvest Hills Bakery.
mhm.
I wanted to be making my own bread, but I'm
One
still
day.
yet to venture in. Yeah, exactly. But that's a whole grain bread, and so it is a little on the dry side, but it is one of the most nutritious breads that you can have, filled with lots of your whole oats and grains. So
But I
yeah,
mean, yeah, the veggies give it off a bit more of a wet approach, if you will, to kind of
yeah,
counteract the dry. I almost like I
yeah,
said, as you know, and so if other people watching don't know, I want to get more into tofu. I have not had
mm,
very. I think honestly, the only experience I've had with tofu is like briefly at your house for some dinners,
yeah,
and that was a while ago now, like at least a few years.
yeah.
And so I almost don't taste the tofu, which I don't know if it'd be a good. Like I don't know if some people wouldn't like tofu, but there's.
Mhm.
Can you like elaborate? Like, is tofu usually tasteless? Or is it?
Yeah, so tofu is one of those foods that kind of
You add
adapts
to
to
other
the flavors
dishes?
around it. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So like in Japanese cooking, we have a lot of dishes that are just tofu sliced with soy sauce, wasabi, and green onions. And the way that I've done it here, and the way that a lot of people can do it, is by spicing it. So what you're probably tasting as a little bit of the spice that's on the onion, it's
Hmm.
actually the Montreal steak spice that's on the tofu itself. So if you actually pull like a little bit of that tofu out, you'll see what I mean by the fact that it you don't taste the tofu itself, you taste the seasonings that are on the tofu.
It's visible. I can see it. Like on it more.
Yeah.
I doubt it would come across on camera well,
Hmm.
but it's almost white more on the inside, and with the colored season on the outside, you can totally tell. Let me try just the tofu.
Yeah.
Wow, it is. It's firmer than I thought. Does that come with cooking? Is it usually softer?
So you can buy like a million different types of tofu, but I use medium firm, and so you can use medium
Mm.
firm or extra firm for this
So
recipe.
already comes a little bit firmer.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's an
Um,
ongoing joke, but it's like chicken. I
yep.
know that's the ongoing joke, but honestly, yeah. Like it has the kind of the consistency of almost like it's a
Of
bit
like a
firmer like
flaky
that, like a
chicken.
soft piece of chicken. Mm.
Yep. Yeah. And so you see what I mean that it has no individual flavor by itself, right? Like it's only got that kind of flavor from the seasoning. And obviously you can season it however you'd like. One of the ways that I do cook tofu that and I'll be making a video on the recipe for it is there's a Chinese dish called char siu.
Mhm.
And I imagine I'm butchering the pronunciation, but that's okay. Um, is I take medium firm tofu, dry it out, and then I cut the top like what you would do to salmon, and then I glaze it in char siu sauce and
Mhm.
put that into a bag for up to 12 hours, let it marinate, and then I fry it. And the tofu, like you don't taste the tofu. The taste of the tofu is gone. You only taste the char siu sauce, which is what char siu is all about.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
very
I'll save
versatile.
some of this for later. What's
Sounds good.
next? What was this? So this was the everyday like sandwich you can make.
Yeah, so we'll
Okay.
go by we'll go and be a little naughty next, and we'll have
Okay.
some of that vegan cheese dip that I
The
made you.
cheese dip.
Yeah, with I've so the main attraction is going to be the dip itself.
Okay.
The potato wedges are just one of the ways that you can have it. Obviously, you can have it kind of like a queso. If you want, like on Super Bowl Sunday, you go and have some chips and dip it into the queso itself. And the
Hmm.
one that I've made you there is a jalapeno vegan cheese dip. So there's fresh cut jalapenos in there, as well as a little bit of like some of the seed to make it quite spicy. But it becomes quite mild because of the cheese itself. So
Hmm. Quite
like,
cheesy. Definitely
yeah,
that little bit of kick from the jalapeno. But like I said, it does. It's that like light dance of a spice on your tongue. It's
yeah,
pretty counterbalancey. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So this actually utilizes an ingredient that I think most vegan cooks should have in their repertoire, which is nutritional yeast. Bragg's sells it. They're the same people that sell apple cider vinegar,
Hmm.
and it's just cultured yeast with a bunch of vitamins in it, and it has a natural umami flavor, being that it's quite cheesy, and so you
Hmm.
can add it on top of things like popcorn. You can throw it into regular dishes and get it a little more cheesy. And so that you have there is just a bit of oat milk, nutritional yeast, and some cornstarch in it.
Hmm.
And so it makes a sauce. Obviously, if you used tapioca starch, it would be a bit stringier, so you
Hmm.
would get a bit more cheese stretch. But I'm yet to find a tapioca starch that is nut free, being that my brother is
Right.
allergic to nuts and that I'm living with him currently.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so that is kind of like the bad boy treat, that's
Hmm.
what you have when you're feeling it, when you're feeling good.
This is that snack that you just keep like. I'm already down to only two little potato wedges because as you're talking, I'm just like popcorn just eating away.
Yeah, and
Yeah, like I
it's
said,
very filling too. So
what I found with natural, real good food is you don't overeat it, which is
yeah,
interesting. Um, it's not loaded with all this processed stuff to make you crave it, to make you want to keep eating it like a bag of Cheetos or whatever and stuff.
yeah,
But it's interesting that again, you are making it from like healthier things, and it's
mhm,
still like you want more. It's that nice snack, so that good cheat meal alternative, like I said, but still staying on track and not going for the bag of Cheetos sort of thing. That's really
exactly.
interesting.
And the very interesting thing about this recipe is that I utilized oat milk. Some people will
Hmm.
utilize almond milk and that sort of thing. Really, any non-dairy milk you can use. There's a new
Right?
company called Sprout that's making pea milk. And
Mm.
so there's a bunch of different companies that sell it now. But the cool thing about nutritional yeast is it's super high in protein. So per tablespoon, it's 5 grams of protein. And so that has 4 tablespoons in it. So you're looking at about 20 grams of protein on top of the protein out of the oat milk. And we all know that oat milk is lower in natural fats than regular dairy milk and higher in protein. And so you're looking at a moderately high protein cheat meal.
Mm.
That I mean, you're not looking at a ton of calories in this, but uh, you're not looking at something that's 0 calorie either. So
But to get compared to classic nachos or this with real cheese and stuff, that's what I mean.
yeah, and
Okay,
I
like
think
it'd be
mhm,
interesting to try without the jalapenos because the jalapenos,
yeah,
like to me, that's what it was. Is like at the movie theater and stuff back in the day, you'd get that jalapeno cheddar dip with the
yeah,
like your nachos or whatever sort of thing, and it really mimics that. And so I'm not sure how if I'd like it less without the jalapenos because, like I said, oh, that just adds that nice spice to it that's really engaging and makes you want more. It's good,
yeah. Well,
super interesting.
one of the things that I find most interesting about this recipe is that without jalapenos or any spice, it is a very I would compare it to like a camembert cheese, so it's very mild on cheese flavor.
Right.
It's because for some reason the nutritional yeast it is very cheesy, but it's the spices that you add to it that really bring out the cheesy flavor.
Right.
So,
That's what I admire
um,
about this kind of cooking.
mhm,
How precise it can be, how just adding something like jalapenos can do something like that. And that's what I mean is the um the rinse repeat, to keep trying to find new ways to do this and not giving up on a recipe, because that little thing can make the difference, which is insane.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what I aim for with this, because I adapted this recipe off of a YouTuber by the name of Sauce Stash. And
Right.
I just took the base idea of non-dairy milk, nutritional yeast, and tapioca starch. And in my case, I use cornstarch. But then I added things like garlic powder, onion powder, a little bit of chili powder as well, a de-seeded jalapeno with some chopped seeds to throw in there for spice. And then I'm also going to work on having a recipe where I incorporate a little bit of actual vegan cheese to maybe give it a bit more stretch and have it
Right.
have that deep orange color. And so it is still a work in progress, but that's kind of my best attempt at it.
It's going good. So, like I said, yeah, like I mean, I can picture it on like a nacho thing, a queso sort of thing, just dipping
Yeah.
these potato wedges and stuff. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then the great thing about this recipe is that, and I gave you a big old tub of it, so you can definitely try this out. The best way to have it is by just reheating it, putting a little bit of like either water or non-dairy milk into it, stir it around for a sec, reheat it for 10 seconds, and it's good to go. And
Gotcha.
it's good like that for a week.
Awesome.
So, you don't have to, with like the Tostitos queso stuff, you can crack it open and you don't know whether or not it's going to last 3 days.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I don't know how much longer that tub you gave me is gonna let. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you have it every couple days,
Yeah.
you'll go through it a lot quicker than you think. I
Oh,
put it
yeah.
on sandwiches and stuff, and it's fantastic to have to just give it a bit more flavor. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
So chickpea.
Yeah, so this is something that I wanted to do a lot of because being Japanese, I love fish, and giving up fish was something that really hard for me. So I was trying to find a way to put we really love tuna mayo in Japan,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to find a way to do tuna mayo but vegan. And so I thought chickpeas. Chickpeas are kind of a neutral flavor. How do I get that flavor of the sea into it? And this one was kind of adapted from there's a recipe online for it, but it's not there. It's this weird. It doesn't vibe with me very much because there's not much Japanese ingredients in it.
Right.
So what this is just blended up nori, which is seaweed, and then you blend it up, throw in a bunch of chickpeas, and you blitz it, but you don't let it turn into like a paste. You want it to be chunky, which is what you have. So I want it to be kind of like tuna chunk, And so in there you've got some vegan mayo, nori, chickpeas, a little bit of cayenne pepper, some fresh cracked pepper, chili oil extract, sesame seeds, and some chopped celery in there, all mixed together to make this spread. And so this is a perfect recipe for people that want to meal prep, because you can make all of it, freeze it, and then like just take a chunk out of it, throw it into the microwave, heat it up, and then toss it in a wrap, and you're out, right?
Do we heat it up? I remember you saying like just the cold tuna. Like you don't even have
So
to.
you can totally keep it cold. One of the ways that I love to have this is in onigiri, which is a rice ball. And my mom used to make onigiri with what she called treasure. And so she would put tuna or chicken inside. And I've adapted that recipe and put the tuna mayo inside, because one of the most famous flavors for onigiri at places like 7-Eleven and Lawson's in Japan is tuna mayo. So I want to make a Japanese classic that I could adapt into a vegan form. So
The first impressions is, like you said, very fishy on the nose.
yeah.
And I know some people might not like that, but it was not too bad. It's not overpowering fishy. It is just like fishy on the nose.
No, exactly.
But first taste, I tried it plain, and it was really good. Like again, I like that chunky texture. There's some. Is it whole chickpeas, or you just didn't blend them fully? Were you saying? Sorry.
Yeah. So what I ended up doing today was I have in the recipe, I say you can use a can of chickpeas. And so what I would recommend for people that are using a can is to put half of the can into the blender, blitz it, and then dump that out and put it onto a plate, and then put the other half in, blitz it, put that on a plate, so that you don't end up with a bit like a too much on the top that's not blended and too much on the bottom that is. And so what I did there was I blended up, because I have dried chickpeas, I blended up a full jug's worth, and then kind of mashed with a spoon the other half to keep the chunks in there. So yeah.
And I do like that. It's a bit more engaging in your mouth, as weird as that kind of sounds. It gives you a little bit more work. Like, again, it's not chewy really by any means, but I like it as opposed to just like hummus, just like ground chickpea sort of thing. It's a little more, it's good.
And you know,
I like the celery on it. It gives it a bit juicier taste.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the main goals, I think, with a lot of plant-based chefs is that we're not trying to make. So many people have the idea in their head that we are trying to make food to imitate.
Yes.
And make exactly like. And I think what we're trying to do is, there's a part of us that wants to eat meat. There's a part of us that wants to eat these things. I really want to eat fish, right? This is not imitating. This is trying to satiate that part of us that wants to eat that, right? That's why we make things like seitan, right? Where you can make this big, basically glob of gluten proteins and turn it into a steak, right? There's something satisfying about that, right?
Which I think totally would lead us into our next point here, is because, like exactly what you just said, is then someone might say, well, why don't you just eat meat, you idiot? So I think that kind of leads us into like the why staying strong and not eating meat. And I think you had a few things to say about that.
Yeah, no, totally. So
like environmental and just moral. And
so one of the very interesting things that kind of tipped the scales for me was before all of this, before the pandemic, I was working at GNC, the General Nutrition Center. I was selling supplements. So I've worked a couple of years in like kind of health, and like they train you on what to give people and how to properly diet. And I had a bunch of customers talking about a documentary about vegan athletes. And so I decided to watch it. You all probably know what it is. And so I watched it and went like, is this all backed by science? So being a university student, I've been taught to think critically. And I thought, never should I discount something because I don't believe in it. So I went online, started researching. I found a bunch of American health journals and stuff that had studies about vegan food. And I found that the health benefits of going vegan, or even just reducing your meat intake, can prolong your life by 20 to 30 years. And the reduction of coronary heart disease, which is very common in my family, as well as keeping you light and energized, and that you eat more, you get to eat more while not having as many calories in, because meat is very calorie dense.
Which I learned from kind of being a runner and learning about some of that stuff, is some of the things that like runners will have to eat and stay like sustained, but you don't feel full, so you can keep running, sort of thing. And that's what happened ultimately with meat, is realizing that from eating that, it's like, I don't want to go on a run anymore. Like, I feel like garbage. Like why would people want to feel this way and stuff? So that's where it comes with those little experiments and like feeling. Yeah. Oh man, continue. Sorry.
Well, and then I think one of the arguments that really, really tipped the scales for me was looking at basic human biology and comparing us to omnivores around the world, as well as herbivores and predators. And so when you look at a predator or a like just a primarily meat-eating animal, like a lion or something, they have short digestive systems. It's built to just intake proteins. We are by no means a vegetarian society, or we are not built to be strictly omnivores. However, strictly herbivores. We are omnivores.
We're scavengers.
Exactly. And so our bodies have been built to intake both meat and vegetables. However, we look at things like in African American communities, in especially down in America, there's a massive majority of the population who are lactose intolerant. And it's because they're second generation African Americans. And it, you know, you have colonial settler Americans who have been drinking milk and eating cheese and stuff for generations who have built up tolerance. But our bodies, it shows that our bodies are not ready to and not supposed to intake dairy after a certain point. And so that's where some of the ideas for the cheese sauce came from, because I love cheese.
And the reasons of ethicalness, and again, like that's kind of how I've pictured it is like why is there a breakfast? Like, why is eggs and bacon breakfast foods? Commercialism. And they want to sell you their stuff. So guess what? Milk's good for your bones. There's that commercial back in the day. Superman. Milk's good for your bones. Guess what? Spikes up. And now when research comes out saying, guess what? We're not really supposed to be having, like, we never had access to milk like this back in the day, sort of thing. Why are we doing it now? All that stuff gets pushed down because the milk industry pays probably to not have that stuff get super viral, sort of thing, because their industry would go down. And because the demand is there, there's the cows being put into brutal conditions just to get as much milk as they can but it's all about money, sort of thing.
Yeah. And, you know, speaking on ethical terms, I saw an ad on YouTube the other day, and it said, look for the ethical stamp on, and it was an advertisement for pork. And I thought, so you're ethically slaughtering animals, right? Like,
or they're feeding them a bit better than.
Yeah. And it's like, what does ethical really truly mean, right?
Right.
If ethically killing something is what we have now branded ethics, then we're no better than the animals out in the wild, right? And a discussion that we've had a lot at my house is the idea that we are now at a point, and we have been at this point for a very long time, where we can pick and choose what we eat. We are no longer scavengers. So why, if we have this privilege, why would we not do something to benefit not only ourselves, but our environment?
Yeah.
So, and that's another one. The environment, it's interesting. I kind of went down, I started at health, and then I moved to ethical, and then I moved to environmental.
Right.
And the environmental way of looking at it is very recent for me, within the last 2 months or so. And I was watching David Attenborough's film that went out on Netflix, and it scared the living hell out of me. Talking about how factory farming and carbon outputs from factory farming are just killing the planet, and that
mass corporations.
Yeah, and that within 50 years, we're looking at the destruction of all wildlife on our planet. And so I bring it back to the point of, we ethically have the resources to
be better,
not only save ourselves, but save our planet and be better. So why don't we?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think everybody taking the small steps, like reducing meat intake, like what a lot of people are doing is buying these products. My parents just bought burgers that are half beef and then half plant-based.
Gotcha.
Even though that's not fully towards what we're going to.
It's taking a step.
It's a step, right? And so we're trying to slowly reduce meat intake. And I think that's where this all vegan food can start to flourish. And having like healthy, tasty food that is plant-based, I think is kind of the center point of this whole argument. Because I think people who do eat meat, people who are out eating steak every night, they have chicken every day, that sort of thing. It's like, if you're having meat 3 meals a day, try and reduce that to 1. Or, just have, like, it's not hard. Have cereal for breakfast instead of eggs and bacon, right?
I mean, don't get me started on cereal, how much sugars and stuff is in it, but maybe not the best example. I totally know what you mean.
Yeah.
On this topic of veganism or vegetarian. But
well, and it's weird because I say cereal, and I mean, I haven't had sugar cereal in so long.
Right.
I make my own granola and stuff.
Just pulling stuff off the top of the head.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, I got to admit with you, Wes, it is super powerful, because to me, one of the big things is that kind of community aspect of it, would you say that, are you kind of impacting your family? Like, or did you all watch these documentaries together and everyone's kind of, or is it you kind of pushing, hey, I think you guys would benefit from this, or did they start it on their own as well, or?
Well, so my brother and I both watched the documentary at the same time, and so
Right.
we both wanted to go plant-based at the same time.
Wow.
My parents have been very adamant in saying that they're too old to be
Right.
changed from their ways, and so but my goal with it is to try and make food that is tasty, that will hopefully push them to like make food that doesn't have meat in it.
Hmm.
And even if I can make it where it's one meal a day instead of three
Hmm.
with meat, right? So while they're not completely on board, they'll I'm trying to make them change just a little bit, right? But I think the biggest thing is like community wise and as well as family wise, we are looking at this generation. Like our generation is the most vital for this change.
Yep.
We are going to be the ones who are having kids in 10 years, and we have to teach them that a plant-based diet is completely okay, and
Yep.
that it's beneficial not only to our bodies but to our planet,
Yep.
right? And so I want to make sure that the planet's still here for them whenever they're alive, right? And as well, I want to make sure that I can see that, I can live to be 100 years old or something like that. And
well, and that's just it, is leading by example, and like that's all it for me is, if you're, it's all who you surround yourself with, because your parents have you and they see maybe how much more energy you possibly have, or how much in a better mood you are just from eating differently and stuff. But not even parents, just anyone else you hang out with, they're just like, at some point people kind of start to realize that and just be like, hey, like, what's your story, man? Like, spill your secret. What's going on here, sort of thing. And that's what I mean is just eventually, if you do lead by example, it'll spread. And guess what? It makes it easier for other people to hop on the bandwagon. Yeah. Which again, by no means is supposed to sound culty or like pushy and be like, listen, this is better for you. You need to jump on board and stuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen unless you put the work in and you realize, you know what, this is better for me. It is better for the planet. It is better for everything, sort of thing. And again, that's where the cooking, I think, comes into play, where if you don't even tell someone and you're like, wow, this tastes really good, what is this? And it's like, yeah, there's no meat in that, sort of thing. It's like, wow, really, sort of thing. It's just it's the little things that you need to let people stumble upon themselves to really get indulged in it fully, I believe, but one step at a time.
No, exactly. And I think that as well, part of why I wanted to do this today is that you and I have been talking about this for so long, but I haven't been able to show you any of the food that I've been making, because of the fact that we haven't seen each other physically since like the beginning of the pandemic. And so I think being able to just share that experience with people and let people try the food, right? And tell people that, like, I'm not going to force you when you're around me to eat plant-based, but I'm going to have this food around if you want to try it. Right. And I think that's the most important thing, because I think that people who are ingrained in that culture of eating meat, they're very adamant about keeping that culture. Right. And it is a driving force in some economies. But and then on top of that, like, I want to be able to show people that you don't have to be a professional chef to make some tasty food. Right.
Love that.
I've never had any sort of formal training, and I think I make somewhat tasty food, and I am by no means professional, and nor do I think I will ever be on the tier of being a professional.
Right.
But you know what? Like, all you need at home are some simple ingredients, and like even if it goes from going and buying the veggie sausages to thinking, well, these veggie sausages cost $8. What's in them? How can I make them at home? Right. And then you start researching, then you start looking at things, you start buying cookbooks, you start, it's a snowball effect.
Exactly.
And if we're able to make this snowball effect work, we could have a global consciousness and an idea of a global awakening for veganism and plant-based foods.
That's the concept in general I've heard from just healthy cooking, is of, like, again, and people know I don't cook often. You're inspiring the heck out of me. I'm definitely going to be trying but because that's what I mean is when you get more into this, what becomes addicting is being that health nut, and you know what's in your food because you made it. Exactly. Good. Then going back to the store and realizing all these words you can't pronounce on the ingredients list and this and that, and just like I mean, I didn't make it. I don't know what's. I don't want to touch that sort of thing.
Yeah,
it'll come and like once you fall in love with this process. And but exactly what I haven't even been doing is you need to find the time to be doing this. You need to make sure that you need to learn to like it, because again, if you force someone to cook, they don't want to cook and stuff, they're not going to like it. They're just not going to not be willing and everything. Yeah. So one step at a time, and I'm going to get on it because I like this world.
Yeah, and like I think that having friends and community around you that are in the same boat is especially helpful. Like
they'll never know until they see, and like the opportunity's right here. It doesn't get easier. Like if you want to try it, you can, but again, I'm not going to force you and stuff. But they won't know until it's talked about. And
and then having the people around you to encourage you to do more, right? It's especially inspiring. And I think I'm extremely blessed in the fact that my girlfriend has been doing this for 5 years, and it's inspiring me to try and make more tasty food, like for the first.
There's your community aspect, right?
Exactly.
Do you know how she got into it? Was it by herself as well?
That's a
story for another day.
Story. No, I can quick it. I can I guess make a long story short. But she was always very empathetic when it came to animals.
Gotcha.
She loved being around animals all the time, and her father is a hunter.
Right.
I don't want to out them too much, but she went on a hunting trip. Yeah, and so they she had to drag a dead moose on her back and then gut it, and so she kind of after that trip went, it's not for me. So she went plant-based, and so she's been doing that for like 5 years now, and she was telling me that even in 5 years, the industry for plant-based food, like before it was tofu and beans. That's all you could have. 5 years ago in 2015, it was tofu and beans. That's it. Now you can get vegan end-link sausages, and there's even a product coming to Canada called Just Egg, which is a vegan egg substitute that's in a squeeze bottle. You can make vegan scrambled eggs with just this little squeeze bottle.
Wow.
And the market is flourishing, and so for her, this is great because she had the trouble of making, while her family ate meat, she had to make her own food, and because of that, she couldn't experiment with anything, right? So she basically just ate beans for 5 years.
Yeah.
So now that,
but see, that's what I mean is she believed in something and she stayed true to it. And to me, without having that community aspect there, damn, she's powerful. Like, wow, that's what I mean is that's why I really wanted to hear it, because if anyone's watching who doesn't have that community aspect, it can be hard. It's the hardest thing to not have that, to be shunned literally while everyone else at dinner is eating meat and doing this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, no, they'll have their beans or they'll do this and stuff, sort of thing. If you're shunned by other people, you'll feel bad and you'll just give in, sort of thing. But the fact that she didn't and stuff, wow.
Yeah, she is very strong, and I think that we both we're both health nuts too. Like, she's big into cycling, we're both into weightlifting. We're both obsessed with living a healthy life, and so
I'm gonna get you both on one of these days. Then we'll be talking.
Well, we'll do a podcast like that. Yeah, all good. But we'll probably do a podcast about hopefully like not only a vegan lifestyle, but something that I think what happens with that snowball, which I think that you as well have started looking at, is it goes past food. It goes into everyday things. Like I'm trying to buy things that are in metal packaging or paper packaging, and it's I think that there's a whole.
I know we've talked about the zero waste groceries one day and stuff, and how like it's going to be only a matter of time before that's here and stuff. But you're exactly right. Then just keep piling on them, because again, poor word, because like you said, even if you start getting really good at cooking, I like the humble aspect. And I'm not a chef, but I like to cook sort of thing. Like I love the humble aspect, but it's the exact same thing as once you again perfect something, not really about actually perfecting it, but once you're like, I'm ready for the next step, I'm ready for more sort of thing, and now I want to do this. Let's see if it makes life more of a game. It just kind of keeps things interesting instead of like, no, now this is my routine.
Yeah.
Change is good sort of thing. As much as a lot of people don't like it, it's fun. It's like, let's try, why not sort of thing. And yeah, that's snowball effect.
Yep. No, exactly. Fantastic.
Any last remarks here? Anything you wanted to say real quick?
Just that if you're looking to get into it, just it's easier than you think. It's cooking is not something that you need to be classically trained in. The internet is such an amazing place to go and find these recipes, and YouTube especially. You know, you don't even have to read recipes anymore.
Exactly.
You just watch videos. So that being said, I've sent Jason all of the recipes that were from today. They're all written down, and serving sizes and stuff are there. There's not going to be a calorie count, but if you're going vegetarian or vegan and you're worried about that,
probably
you can figure that out.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So if you got a calorie counter,
them in the video or in the video and in the description, we'll see all of the plan for that. But wicked.
Yeah, and I run a Instagram dedicated to vegan cooking. I haven't done a lot on there yet, and I will be starting hopefully a YouTube channel to just go over some basics for vegetarian and vegan cooking. I want to talk about basic ingredients that you can buy, things you should have in your repertoire as a vegan cook, and then hopefully write more recipes and have them up there. So
keep it up, Wes.
Awesome.
I'll link your Instagram in the description, eventually a possible YouTube channel and stuff probably as well. And awesome. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I'm an absolute blast. I mean, not many future podcasts am I going to be able to be eating amazing food as I'm in the conversation. So starting things off strong. It's going to be hard to compete after this.
I'll bring you. We'll do just a cooking podcast. We can just be in
once
the
things
in the
are
kitchen.
Hopefully a bit more normal and we can actually get together and be cooking together. I think that'd be amazing. Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome. Talk to you next time.
Awesome. See you, buddy.